This is the 2020 Toyota Supra GR. Now, we tested this last year. 2020 version, there was a few complaints. It does look absolutely stunning, but it had less power than the Z4 equivalent, only 335 horsepower with 365 foot-pounds. Toyota has then said, hey, let's give it more power. So they've tweaked a whole bunch of things, engine, suspension, traction control systems, to give this car 382 horsepower, which is exactly what it deserved in the beginning. I mean, look at it. Such a pretty car. Riding on these beautiful 19-inch rims, Pilot Super Sports, tons of grip. I can't say anything but good about this car. Anyway, I sort of can, because unfortunately the interior is not specifically or Toyota. It's very BMW, but it's something that we're going to have to get over. But let's go ahead and take a look at the inside. Inside, it is somewhat, as I said, BMW-ish. You'll recognize the BMW gear shift right here. You'll recognize the BMW scrollable controller. We just go to all the different menus. You can scroll through My Vehicle. You can go into some system settings here. Main menu, vehicle status, tire settings, etc. through here. It's pretty easy to use. The touchscreen's not bad. The screen's a little small. I wish it were angled more towards the driver, and I wish it was a little bit more Toyota-ish. Maybe, you know, if you look over at the dials here, two separate ones here, just a little bit more retro, because the outside looks stunning and the inside is very BMW-ish. But that's not a bad thing. The controls are easy to use. You can set all your different bands right here. You've got all the HVACs here in the center. There is a little bit of storage. There's a glove box over here. Store some stuff. A little bit of room there. I've got some things over there that I've put in the car. And then when you look at, just zoom in here, you've got the central speedo. If you push the sport button, it turns off the stop-start system, which is slightly annoying. But everything falls reasonably to hand. The steering wheel feels pretty good in your hand. It's not too thick like some BMW wheels can be. As I said before, these seats are pretty comfortable. I've got the integrated head restraints. In the back here, you've got some room. You can actually push stuff through, which is a benefit. Everything else is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to dwell on a lot of this. I think the key to this car is everything functions really well, but it drives incredibly well. So you can overlook the fact that yes, it might be a BMW inside with some Toyota badges placed, you know, here and in a couple of other places, but I still really like this car because it drives so well. So without messing around and checking out the interior and finite detail, let's go for a drive. Okay, so now we've got this BMW interior out of the way. Let's move on to the best part of this car. And there are two best parts of this car. One is how this thing looks. I think it looks fantastic. The second one is how it goes, particularly with the increase in power, which is more noticeable at the top end. Torque is the same, but the top end, anything above like 60, you definitely feel an extra shove. So let's make sure we're in sport mode, belt on, parking brake off, and let's have a check. So Toyota has made some modifications to a few components that I mentioned earlier, and this thing goes like a stabbed rat. It is quick. Toyota said it'll do 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. I have no reason to disbelieve that. It does hook up pretty fast. It's better if you get the excellent Michelin Pilot Sport Super Sports warm first. Yeah, it really likes the corners. Steering is pretty precise, actually. A little better than the Corvette that I drove actually last week. Very sharp. Really good ratio on the steering. Can't feel a hell of a lot what's going on with the front tires, but you know, that's typical with most of these assisted systems these days. But you know, you can power into a corner and then boot out. The rear wiggles a little bit, but it doesn't have that sort of hop that the old car had. When I say old car, I mean the 2020 version. But this one, I mean, the other one was fantastic, but they've just gone ahead and improved this thing. This thing is just a joy to drive. The traction control does a pretty good job of not over-nannying things, and so you can feel it give you a little bit of slip if you happen to get a little heavy with the right foot mid-corner, and it will correct the car. I would probably suggest turn it off on a track only. I feel like we could end up with the tail wagging the dog a little bit, which was a bit of a fault with the old one, but this one has definitely improved in its composure. This car, with all the bells and whistles that it has, which aren't a lot, let's face it, you buy this car for sheer speed and fun. It's about $57,000. And I did drive the 2-liter version. No, that sounds good. I did drive the 2-liter version a while ago, and it was very enjoyable. But this one with 382 horsepower, gotta say it's even better. Now I have heard talk of Toyota building a hot version of this car. I mean, with maybe 500 horsepower. Now, that would be insane, because right now it is pretty quick. Just coming up is a pretty tight right-hander, so you gotta go a little slow in on this one. It's a pretty tight little bend, and then wait for the corner and then go. So you power on too early and you're going to have the traction control kicking in, or you're going to be in a hedge if you've got it turned off. I'll spend a little time telling you about the transmission. It's completely unchanged. It's an 8-speed BMW transmission, same as before. Can't fault it. If you put it in normal mode, it just slushes through the 8 speeds, gives you pretty decent fuel economy while you're doing that, and the engine note is fairly subdued. It just sounds like a BMW straight 6. And then in sport, obviously, you get the loud pops and crackles, and it holds the gears, but it does a good job. It doesn't sort of... Some cars I've driven have forced the engine to be like, you know, way high in the revs, and this doesn't need it because it's got, you know, 360 foot-pounds of torque. Something like a Lexus RCF that has a high red line and not a whole lot of torque. Yeah, the transmission needs to be programmed so it holds on to revs longer. This doesn't need to do that in sport. I think they've got the programming pretty spot on with this engine. So, you know, squirting past cars like that, piece of cake. Interested to see, because Toyotas are famed for their reliability, and maybe BMW not so much, and so I would be interested to see in 3 or 4 years' time how this particular car and its sibling, the Z4, have fared in terms of reliability. You know, Toyota partnering up with BMW, it's got to be a risk for them, but shall see. Both cars are built in Austria, so let's hope that they're built pretty well. Man, these Pilot Super Sports stick really well, but it needs them. Brakes are good too. You can get up to some pretty high speeds. Brakes haven't really, they've got a good pedal feel to them. Don't have to push too hard to get some bite out of them initially. Even though it has a BMW engine and BMW components, they've given it some soul, and it just looks fantastic. Side by side, it's a no-brainer. I'm getting this. You can drive this thing all day and not get bored. Well, until that is, I ran out of fuel, and I'd be very sad. It's just fantastic. You see people stopping and staring at a Z4 quite as much as people have been staring at this car. So I think Toyota, yeah. Some of the cars are not the prettiest cars, but this little baby Supra is phenomenal. I wish I could have it for longer, but it's only a week. And the good thing is, it's not just a backroads, mountain, twisty road kind of car. I'm having a great time here on these roads, almost no traffic whatsoever. But it's really calm and composed around town. Even in sport mode, you can have a little fun on the freeway. You can scoot past slower traffic. It really is a pretty complete little sports car. And the best news is, of course, there are no backseat passengers to... you're going too fast. Yeah, this car definitely picks up that additional 50 or so horsepower. Has made a difference to this car's top end. Whereas before it felt like it would run out of steam a little bit above speeds that we won't talk about. Speeds that are basically go directly to jail, do not stop, and do not collect $200. Yeah, it has a lot more grunt up at the top. And this is not really a car for a drag race anyway. I mean, you know, it's rear-wheel drive. It spins its wheels just a tad. But even despite that, it still gets to 60 in under 4 seconds. You don't really need anything else. Once you get it on these roads, it is truly a gem to drive. I can't really fault it. So, thanks for watching. Come to the end of our test drive of the 2021 Toyota Supra. Get yourself right over to the dealership and order one today, especially in this gray that we have, so you don't get noticed by law enforcement. Tune in next time. Please like and subscribe to our channel. And again, thanks for watching.